Salvete discipuli. So, like I said when I gave you the new noun charts, there's nothing actually new about the fourth and fifth declensions. It's all the same patterns, all the same, uses. You just have two new sets of endings to learn, which I realize is not ideal. And I promise you I wouldn't make you do it if you didn't have to. In order to be able to read Latin, you have to be able to recognize and read fourth and fifth declension nouns. So let's take a look at this chart and let's see if we can attribute some patterns to it. So what I'm going to start by doing, this is the chart that you guys have on the back of your noun chart. I'm going to start by blocking out the neuter so that you can't see it here, so that we can just look at the patterns that I am going to require you to memorize. Okay, so if we look at the first, second, third, and fourth declensions here, you'll notice that if we're going across, there are patterns, and if you're going down, there are patterns as well. Now, again, I'm not trying to attribute shame or guilt, but I have been begging you to learn the first three for a year, okay? Because I knew we would come to this point, and I do really try to make learning fair and accessible for all of you. So if you haven't learned the first, second, and third declensions yet, I'm gonna move on, okay? Because that's really on you. You need to have learned them by this point. So if you haven't, I said this many times last year, just commit to learning one declension per week. If we had done that a year ago, if you had committed to that, you'd be there by now, right? So some of you really did know it, but in the last couple of months, you've maybe forgotten it because we stopped doing the weekly declension quizzes. Well, guess what? They're back. So starting next week, we're gonna have our first declension quiz on all 5 declensions. This week, the declension quiz will be not for points. It's gonna be so you can see how you would do if it were for points, okay? I got some weird shadow thing going on here, kids. I'm not sure what's happening. Oh, that's not helpful. Oh well, whatever. Okay, now the lighting's weird, so I'm glad you guys are here for this. Okay, so let's take a look at the noun chart. So let's go vertically. So remember, each declension is like a family, a biological family, okay? So if you look at the first declension here, okay, all of these have something in common. The first declension is more commonly referred to as the A declension, right? Oh, I don't know where that went. Okay, so the first declension is often referred to as the A declension for obvious reasons. It's got a lot of A's, okay? The second declension is often referred to as the O-I declension. Again, for relatively obvious reasons, there are lots of O's and I's, okay? This is also the one where I gave you a second Mickey Mouse song remembrance for it. Us, E-O, O-I, O, Re, Mi, So, Sis. I don't know if that ever helped. The third declension, this is the one where I told you the story about my mom. She's talking to you. Oh, goodness. And she says, hey, you, and everyone's different. She could be talking to anyone, so it's anything goes. Is I am E? Is I am E? And then for the plural, asum ibisacibus. I've got nothing for that, so you're on your own. So those are the 3 declensions that we have been using for the past year and a half. Now, moving forward, we really need to be able to recognize the 4th and 5th declensions. So the 4th declension, as I discussed in class when I introduced the chart, is known as the U declension. Why? Because it's got a lot of U's, okay? Please note how many long marks exist in the 4th declension, and you must use them. There will be no halfways, right? You have to learn the long marks. In point of fact, it's probably easier to learn the ones that don't have long marks and put long marks over everything else. So the ones that don't have long marks are the double U, the ibus, because there's no you in it, and then the nominative and accusative in the singular. I had students who learned it by like numbers 1, 4, 6, 8, 10. Sorry. 1, 4, 7, 8, and 10 don't have the long marks. So I'm not sure what will work for you, but whatever works for you, that's what you want to commit to, because you need to remember those long marks. Then finally, you have the fifth declension, and the fifth declension, that's the E declension, right? And then again, this one's quite obvious. It's because there are a lot of E's, okay? So you could remember this by doing imagine like an Atari game, right? Where it's the first one, A, is hitting the ball, A, boing, E, boing, I, O, sorry, boing, U. And then the middle one is having an identity crisis, and it just uses whatever it wants, whenever it wants to. So A hits to E, hits to IO, hits to U. And then the middle one is just whatever, anything goes. It could be any vowel, it could be any ending. Who knows who my mom's talking to in the nominative case, right? So if you're thinking about how do I make patterns out of all of these seemingly random endings, try to group them by category first. A, E, I, O, U. Next, if you know your first, second, and third declensions, it's going to make it easier to learn the fourth, because there are patterns. For example, if you look in the accusative singular, what is still a commonality? Commonality is still the letter M. In the accusative singular, you still have the vowel, A-E-I-O-U, ending with M. In the ablative singular, you still have a singular vowel, and it's usually the name vowel, A-E-I-O-U, okay, the declension family vowel. In the plural, if you look at the genitive, you're going across, they still all end in what? Arum, orum, arum. So again, you'll notice that the middle one is like the center one is where everything kind of goes wonky, right? The third one, it's always weird, just like third conjugation verbs. But A, E, I or O, U, and then the ending. A-E-I-O-U, right? In the plural, dative and ablative plurals are still identical to one another, right? And they all end in is or ibus. And then finally, let's make this one a different color so that it doesn't blend into all the others. Finally, the accusative is the special letter A, E, I, O, U, and then the one in the middle is whatever it wants to be, and then an S for the accusative plural. So obviously, a lot of this, like my tricks for helping you learn the fourth and fifth declension, are predicated upon you already knowing the first three declensions. If you don't know the first three declensions, descending into shame and self-recrimination is silliness, because it doesn't help you move forward. So take a breath, figure out what's going to work for you to learn some of these declensions, and dig in and get started, okay? Don't panic. Don't be like, I'll never get it. We have a whole semester left of these weekly quizzes. If you say, I'll never get it, you're going to fail. And I don't want you to fail, and you don't want to fail. I know none of you come in here wanting to fail, so let's not, okay? So if this stuff doesn't help and you're still struggling, come in for A East, come in during your study halls, and we'll do practice together, okay? All right, thanks kids, bye.